What's up, everyone? How you doing? Bill Corpus Crispy Murphy here, and welcome to a long at last edition of Murphy's View here on the In Sports Insanity Network. Well, if you guys remember back in July, seems like forever ago, when it was about 50 degrees warmer and I was wearing shorts instead of sweats, but that's the way it is, I take it. Um, I did a I did a tier list ranking the new NFL hires for this coming season. So I thought what I would do now is I am going to re-rank those new coaches based on how do I think they did this season and their performances. So I'm just gonna pour this up. And boom. All right, here's the almighty ranked tier. If you want to go back and watch my original ranked tier, it is on this channel. Go check that out. All right, so we're going to go in alphabetical order. We're going to begin with Raheem Morris of the Atlanta Falcons. All right, last year the Atlanta Falcons went 7-10. This year they went 8-9. And Raheem Morris did not have a good year. There was like some changes in the defense, but only because they were playing subpar teams. And of course, I think the thing that will sting this year was his poor time management decisions in Week 17 against Washington Commanders when he called timeout at the wrong time. Raheem Morris is just a reminder to the Atlanta Falcons that you could have hired, I don't know, the greatest coach in the NFL, some fella named Bill Belichick, but you didn't because you're morons. God bless. Okay. My preseason rank for Raheem Morris was D, and I am going to keep him there at D tier. Okay. Next, from the Carolina Panthers, Dave Canales. I had he for 2023, the Carolina Panthers were 2-15, and this year they were 5-12. Okay, here's the thing with Dave Canales. Like I said earlier, they didn't have much to work with because David Tepper is insane and doesn't know anything about running a football team. So I said that Dave Canales is going to have to do with what he has. And okay, we saw sparks at the end with the defense of the season. So I think there were some slight improvements. And as you can see, Canales is connecting with his team. Especially he is strengthening his bond with Bryce Young. So I'm willing to cut him some slack. As you can see, slight improvement. Not a lot, but some slight improvement. So I am going. My preseason rank for Dave Canales was C. So I am going to put him in C tier. Okay, next from the Los Angeles Chargers of San Diego. That's for Mike Rifkin. Jim Harbaugh is Jim Harbaugh. And listen, I'm not going to make this one too long. I had him at A tier in the beginning of the season. And you know what? Nothing has changed. He's an A tier. Big turnaround. Scoring defense went from one of the first to the best, and which was supposed to be a soft rebuilding year because this time last year they fired Brandon Staley after the Thursday night game, and now the Chargers went from the fifth number 5 pick in the draft to they are now playoff bound. They were 5-12 last year. This year they finished the season 11-6. So you know what? I am going to put Jim Harbaugh in A tier. Okay, now I know what you're all thinking. Bill, you put all the people that you were going to put that you put in original tier in your preseason video now. So why should we even bother watching the rest? You're probably going to put everyone else in the same. Well, my friend, that's where you're wrong. Okay. The next one is from the Las Vegas Raiders of Oakland, Antonio Pierce, who just got fired. Last year there was a spark, there was a big spark. You know, he finished the year 5-4 after the firing of Josh McDaniels. He had the locker room, everyone liked him, everyone respected him. And I thought, okay, you know what? I think Antonio Pierce is going to do good this year. Let alone I was wrong. Back on Tuesday, he was fired, and so was the GM. So that is just an unstable mess in Las Vegas right now. That is a freaking unstable mess in Vegas. And I don't know if I see it getting any better. But here is my rank of Antonio Pierce. He just one was the quarterback situation. He wanted to start O'Connell. He said he was going to start Aiden O'Connell, and then he started Gardner Minshew. And then after that, the Raiders just went on a 10-game losing streak. They finished 29th in points per game with 18.2 and 32nd in rushing yards per game with 79.8. Then he was struggling with clock management and game time decisions. And then there was the whole, he was calling timeouts at the weirdest time, going in for a weird fourth down situation. And then the thing with Davante Adams requesting a trade, you could see something was going on between the two. And listen, I'm kind of torn on this. With all that, you can't just wipe Antonio Pierce's slate clean. A lot of it he was responsible for. But to be fair, I don't think Mark Davis should have fired him immediately. I think he should have given him at least another year. But from what I've seen, and listen, there were some sparks with players like Brock Bowers, but other than that, I don't see Pierce doing much. Preseason, I was way, way too optimistic for Antonio Pierce. I had him at B tier. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to put him at F tier. Okay, next one. Jerod Mayo from the New England Patriots. Okay, this was a team that just going after the year of after the leaving of Bill Belichick. It's kind of a split between the fault of Jerod Mayo and Robert Kraft. Robert Kraft just said the team didn't develop right. And listen, there is just so much that Jerod Mayo did. And it's about 90-something% his fault. Jerod Mayo there was the quarterback situation. He promised Drake May he was going to be starting, and then he started Jacoby Brissett. And then his time management was terrible. And after their win in week 1 against Cincinnati, they just lost 6 straight. And listen, it's Robert Kraft's fault, too. Robert Kraft isn't innocent in all this either. You put someone who has no experience in being a coordinator, let alone being a head coach, as their head coach. And we all know he wanted Mike Vrabel. And you know what? Robert Kraft is going to most likely get Mike Vrabel as head coach this time around. But as I said, if you listen to our most recent Sports Insanity podcast, go check it out. If Robert Kraft wanted Mike Vrabel so bad, why didn't he just hire Mike Vrabel? But I have a feeling again they did the same to Gerard Mayo what Houston did to Lovie Smith. And I guarantee you he knew that they were going to tank, that they were going to lose. Mayo probably already knew his fate, and he said, "You know what? If I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out flipping Robert Kraft off." But again, Mayo, with all the things I just mentioned, he also didn't know how to handle the media. He just was not ready. And I'm in my preseason video, I put him in F tier, and I'm going to sadly put him in F tier here. Okay, next one is Michael McDonald from the Seattle Seahawks. Listen, this was a team that was still very good. They went 10-7, an improvement from 9-8 last year. So they only won one more game and lost one less game than they did last year. But, the defense really caught up to stride. The offense was really good, such as with um TK Lockett, no DJ Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith Njigba. They This was a really good offensive team. Unfortunately, the Seattle Seahawks, finishing at 10-7, missed the playoffs. And they were actually the only team with 10 or more wins to miss the postseason this year. But I do see bright future for McDonald and Seattle. Last year, okay, preseason, I put McDonald in A tier. I think I'm going to put him in a very solid B tier. Okay, next. I'm surprised he didn't get fired. This is very strange. Brian Callahan of the Tennessee Titans, the offensive guru who really helped molded Joe Burrow the past couple years in Cincinnati. You could see that this year, not that impressive. Okay, last year the Titans finished 6-11, and this year they ended up 3-14. Like the other people who I said had problems here, he mishandled the quarterback situations with Will Levis and Rudolph Mason, and he was just in way over his head. The offense was ranked 26, and if it wasn't for Tony Pollard, they probably would have been even lower. Tony Pollard was the only bright spot in this team. We had the whole quarterback situation. How this guy still has a job is beyond me. I think the one bright side to all this is that they're going to have the number one pick. And that leaves into a bunch of things. Are they going to process it with Will Levis and get someone like Travis Hunter? Or are they going to go for a quarterback with Sharir Sanders or Cam Ward in the draft? And plus, what makes this even weirder is Ran Carthon, the GM, was fired this week from Tennessee. But as of now, Callahan is staying. I think that is very strange because you want to know something, folks, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think Tennessee is an absolute mess right now. Tennessee is just an absolute mess at the moment. Like, because when new GMs come in, they want to bring in their own people. So, is he going to fire? So, is the new GM, whoever it's going to be, are they going to fire Brian Callahan? Or is ownership going to say, okay, we have a condition. If you decide to accept the GM, we're keeping Callahan for a year. We're going to keep Callahan for a year, and after that, do what you want. But a lot of GM candidates, if they say we're keeping the head coach, because like I said, a lot of GMs, they want to bring in their own people. They're going to say no. And here's the thing. even if they do hire Callahan, I mean, even if they get a new GM and the new GM decides to fire Callahan, like who knows when they're going to hire the new GM? And plus, I have a guaranteed that a lot of the coaches who people will be looking at it, whether it's Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, if they brought back Mike Vrabel, which they probably won't, Pete Carroll, Cliff Kingsbury, Doug Peterson, like a lot of the people who will probably be coaching candidates will probably already be hired. So whoever Tennessee is going to get, they're going to end up getting the table scraps. And I think that was just a bad move, firing the GM but keeping Callahan. I think that's just a very strange predicament. But anyway, Callahan, he had some weapons to develop, but not a lot. And he had the biggest drop from preseason. In my preseason rank, I had him in B tier. Here, he's going with Antonio Pierce. He's going to F tier. Okay, the last one. Dan Quinn of the Washington Commanders. Dan Quinn of the Washington Commanders. Preseason rank was C. And wow, he turned this team around. Their season last year, they were 4-13. This year they finished 12-5. And there was just so much. I did not expect Washington to be this good this year. I really didn't. At the beginning of the you had the Snyder ownership was gone. Then you had the Adam Peters and bringing in all this new guys. There was talk that Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for Detroit, was going to be the new head coach. But that was not the case. And they decided to bring in somebody who was on no one's radar, Dan Quinn. Who kind of botched his coaching career after the whole 28-3 thing in the Super Bowl and then was a defensive coordinator for Dallas. But Dan Quinn really motivated this team. He built the culture. This is like your underdog story. Somebody who was on no one's radar. And someone who turned out which ended up being a great team, Jaden Daniels, who they picked at number 2, ended up being is going to be rookie of the year. I'm calling him right now. Jaden Daniels will be rookie of the year. Dan Quinn is probably the biggest shock of the year. Here's my thing. Dan Quinn is in contention to be coach of the year. I think he'd be number 2 choice. My number 1 would be Dan Campbell, but I think Dan Quinn would be a very solid choice for coach of the year. My preseason rank, Dan Quinn was at C tier. This time around, he's moving up. He is going into A tier. He is going into A tier. He is actually the only person who moved up from preseason. So, okay, that is my list. I'm just going to go through it real quick. My F tier were Gerard Mayo, Antonio Pierce, and Brian Callahan. My D tier was Raheem Morris. My C tier was Dave Canales. My B tier is Michael McDonald. And my A tier is Jim Harbaugh and Dan Quinn. So come this summer, I'll be doing the same thing, except with new coaches. If you like what you see here, go to www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. Check out all our blogs, our history. Check out our podcast, available on all platforms. Check us out here on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out the Sunday morning show and the Sports Insanity podcast, which is here every Monday and Friday. For all of us here at the Sports Insanity Network, I'm Bill Corpus Crispy Murphy. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Take care.